Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
The traditional path from China's top Gaokao scores to elite universities isn't what it used to be. Thousands of high-achieving students are now choosing vocational undergraduate programs over conventional degrees, lured by strong starting salaries and the promise of career stability. But the surge in popularity is testing the system in unexpected ways. So today we'll look at the real trade-offs behind China's vocational boom and what they mean for students, employers, and the system itself. We're live from our studios here in Beijing. This is Roundtable. I'm Steve Hatherley. Thank you very much for being with us today. And for the show, I'm with Fei Fei and Yushan. First up, forget the old stereotypes about trade schools. Across China, a quiet revolution is turning the traditional educational pipeline upside down. High school graduates with Gaokao scores exceeding 600 points are actively passing up general universities to secure spots in advanced vocational undergraduate programs. From midnight registration queues to cutting-edge majors in humanoid robotics, these highly specialized employment-first schools are suddenly the hottest ticket in town. Driven by an economy demanding elite technical talent, this historic boom is promising higher starting salaries and long-term career stability in an automated age. But with the popularity comes some tests. What happens when the vocational schools become as difficult to get into as the universities I mentioned a moment ago? And what are the hidden risks or challenges that these vocational schools face as they experience the explosive growth? Yushan and Fei Fei, good afternoon to you. I think in Canada, in this situation, Canada and China share a little bit of a cultural similarity in the sense that a vocational school in the past would have been seen, and this is kind of painting the whole picture with a broad stroke, which isn't true for everyone, but for the sake of this conversation, would have been seen as an option B. But now, in China, that is changing, and it's changing very, very, very quickly, which is a really cool thing to see. But we're going to talk about, what happens when the adjustments need to be made as well. So where do we want to start with this one, Yushan? I guess the big news is where we should begin, the numbers and the schools themselves and the popularity.
Yeah, well, like you said, here in China, it's the same case. Vocational schools were used to be seen as a safety net or a backup plan for students who didn't really perform well in Gaokao or who just simply doesn't want to get too academically career-wise and just prefer to pick up a skill and find a job. But this year, we're seeing that a lot of vocational schools here in China, if not focusing mainly on multiple vocational undergraduate universities, they saw their maximum and even minimum admission threshold rise way above the local general undergraduate control line, meaning that this year it can be harder to get even enrolled into one of these vocational universities than a common, just regular, usual academic university.
And in the past, would this be true that you wouldn't, if you were going to go that route, the route of a vocational school for your education after high school, you wouldn't even have to worry about being accepted in terms of competition from other students, meaning the classes might not fill up so quickly, or if they do, then you're not going to be facing the highest Gaokao scores or anything like that.
Yeah, it's like another way out. If Gaokao is too challenging for you, then there's always a plan B, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And also you don't have to worry about not being able to be enrolled in one of these schools.
It's like you could get guaranteed.
Yeah, almost. Unless you have like 100 out of the 700 total scores.
Shenzhen Polytechnic University is a good example of what we're talking about here. They had applicants scoring as high as 610 out of a total 750 this year. Those are Gaokao numbers, right? So 750 is the highest possible score.
And any score above 600 is considered,
you can get into one of the top tier universities in China.
With a score of 610, could you just pick your school? Or would it have to be higher than that?
It will definitely be higher than that, but with about 600 and above, you can get into
a lot of the better
prestigious
universities all over China. Yeah,
and now Shenzhen Polytechnic is an example of you're seeing scores above 600 applying to vocational schools there, and also similar vocational universities in Zhejiang. They saw top scores reach 606, basically the same numbers there.
Yeah. Also for Gaokao students who attended Gaokao, when they register for different universities, the university, after receiving how many students are trying to become part of their major, enter their university this year, they will see this ratio. But for some like vocational technology universities, like the Tsinghua University of Vocational Technology, the places available to applicants with the strongest Gaokao results were filled almost immediately this year, which shows a clear sign that, it's been happening for several years. This is the fifth consecutive year that it happens, which shows a clear sign that students, especially top students, they are squeezing their head in order to get a place in one of these universities.
The numbers from Tsinghua University of Vocational Technology, the number of applicants scoring above 570 out of 750, so slightly lower than Shenzhen Polytechnic and Zhejiang, but still 570. If that's got to be still a pretty good score.
Pretty good score, yes.
Okay.
And also, it's not only about the students themselves want to choosing this kind of vocational universities, and also some parents are also very proactively thinking about choosing vocational education as their children's future path.
The number of applicants, just to finish my thought there, the number of applicants scoring 570 out of 750 jumped by almost 16% at Tsinghua University of Vocational Technology from the previous year. So we're learning there that the bar is rising, so to speak. Sorry, Fei Fei, didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, because I was thinking from the parents' perspective. When we are thinking about, talking with my fellow friends, when we're seeing, what if my kid got enrolled in one of the vocational, either high schools or universities? A couple of years ago, that was a thought that is so daunting. Like, it's basically meaning the end of the career. Your kid ended up in one of the vocational education institutions. That means you're not going to get a very good job, not a very bright future. But now, a couple of years forward, now we are seeing parents seriously thinking that, vocational university is not that bad.
More than just not that bad. Some parents in Beijing were reportedly lining up in the middle of the night just to make sure that they could register their spots for early admissions at vocational secondary schools. An example of that would be Beijing Changping Vocational School. Lining up in the middle of the night. Would you do that? Would parents do that for a normal university, a regular university?
Well,
not really.
But for like good junior high school or high school, or even a couple of years, five years ago, for good kindergartens, parents would line up to try to squeeze their kid into one of the what they consider good schools.
But they would never do that for a vocational school.
Never see that.
But now they are.
And also in southern China, in Guangzhou, there's a newly introduced 3+4 program, which seamlessly links 3 years of secondary vocational training with 4 years of undergraduate vocational studies. So that's a skill set or a bundle of two different types of education. And they only offer about 40 slots for application. And guess how many people registered? 6,366
for 40 slots.
Wow,
for
that's
40
so
slots.
Competitive.
So that 3+4 program, I looked it up and this is what I found. So normally in China, after the 9th grade, so that would be your final year of middle school, then students choose between two choices. One is an academic high school. That's where you follow the path of 3 years of high school plus the Gaokao, then on to your university. The second option is called a secondary vocational school. And that's where you go to that high school and then maybe directly to a job. Maybe.
Could be, yeah.
Or maybe onto a vocational college later. The 3+4 program in Guangzhou combines the 3 years of secondary vocational school plus a 4-year program. So it kind of blurs that line. It allows the students to enter the secondary vocational school, study there for 3 years, and then automatically move into a 4-year vocational undergraduate program. And I don't think the Gaokao is required.
That's why. That's why so many people want this slide.
And that's why it's called 3+4.
Yeah.
Or at least the threshold would be much lower and much easier. And I think from either both the parents and the students' point of view, that will be such a clear pathway forward. Because when it comes to Gaokao, so many factors are at play. Who knows what's going to happen, and who knows what your score can be, and who knows what kind of university you are going to get in. Even you have the capacity of getting above 700 scores out of the 750. So these 3+4 program, the reason they're getting more than 6,000 applicants for just 40 slots, I think the assurance is definitely a big factor here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different factors at play. And yes, I think that's one of them. And I think the fact that perhaps it's kind of a paradigm shift, isn't it? And I think the paradigm shift is coming as a result of the changes happening in society.
Yeah.
Meaning the job, I mean, AI is everywhere now, and it's dominating the job market in various industries. And when you take that change into account, then vocational education, where you get hands-on experience learning actual hands-on skills, then it's just it creates a completely different reaction to the education path.
Yeah, if we look at the vocational undergraduate programs or vocational undergraduate or bachelor majors, they haven't really been invented that long ago. The first trial programs were launched back in 2019, and the landscape back then was just, let's see if it's working for our current ecosystem, especially when it comes to cultivating young talents for specific high-tech and high-innovative future career paths. And it worked. So previously, it started off, I remember, just a little bit over 50 of such schools. But as of May 2026, the number of vocational undergraduate universities here in China has reached 124. But if you're unfamiliar with what a vocational undergraduate university is actually a school who provide vocational undergraduate programs that have been incorporated into the China National Bachelor's Degree System.
So when you graduate after that 4-year program, you have, on paper, the equivalent degree of what you would get from a typical university.
A typical undergraduate program,
yes.
And
I also want to point out what's promising is, likewise, in graduates, you have a path forwarding to the postgraduates and even doctoral degrees. And that path wasn't there like before 2019.
It didn't even exist.
Yeah, if you go to a vocational university, that's basically the end of your education. But now we are seeing possibilities. If you want to, pursue higher education, you believe you have the potential and capacity and you have the needs, you can apply for masters and even doctorate.
Right.
So now we're starting to get an even clearer understanding of why attitudes are changing about vocational education paths. Like you said, these options didn't exist in the past. So you said, Fei Fei, that many parents would view this as a dead end, perhaps, but now it's not a dead end at all. You get the equivalent bachelor's degree that you'd get from a regular style of university, but you get something else. You get practical skills, because that's at the core of the education, that type of practical skill training. Hands-on practice accounts for 50% of the total course hours when we're talking about vocational undergraduate courses. That's a lot of hands-on experience.
Yeah, that's the main point where it differs from regular bachelor degree. You don't just sit in a classroom all day. Half of your study hours is actually practical in a factory or in a lab. So that's something that's really opening up people's mind nowadays, not only for educators, but also, like you said, Fei Fei, like for students and parents too. They now realize that they can choose it because there's so many advantages that comes along with this. First of all, if not most practically speaking, these schools, they can connect students with future job opportunities that start off with a satisfying payment. And I think that matters a lot because nowadays, these students, after graduating from these vocational bachelor degree education, they actually learn quite well. So, for example, at Wenzhou Technician Institute, the class of 2025 achieved a stellar employment rate of over 99%, with an average starting salary of over 5,000 yuan, which is roughly $740. So, more importantly, graduate with advanced technician or pre-technician certifications. They also have a higher salary of over 7,000 yuan, which is a little more than $1,000. So now this is about payment. I mean, start-off payment. Starting off since you're 22 years old, perhaps, right after graduation.
And that's considered a very good start.
Yeah, normally speaking, yeah.
Graduates with bachelor's level vocational degrees earn 42% more at the start of their careers than those with associate level vocational degrees in the same field and region. That's from a 2024 China Vocational Education Quality Report. Well, that's a pretty good incentive for young people to want to pursue a path and for parents to feel good about it because you have the numbers right in front of you, the proof. And what did you say? Over 99% job placement?
Yep, that's so assured, so alluring to many people.
It just makes more sense.
Yeah, and also, more precisely, many of these students are pretty happy with what they do. They don't really have that anxiety or dilemma. For example, for graduates from the class of 2021 from that vocational school, over 95% of them said they were competent in their jobs, and nearly 80% were satisfied with their career development. I mean, that can be also something really assuring and happy to see, because when it comes to new graduates out of school, one of the biggest questions, apart from salaries, is basically what is my future?
Yeah, how happy are you with your life
at
this stage?
So that's why we are seeing these kind of graduates coming out from these vocational schools are sort of achieving both at the same time.
Well, maybe part of the reason that the students coming out of the programs and into their jobs are so satisfied is because of the types of jobs. There's been official adjustments and expansions of vocational specialties directly targeting cutting-edge and emerging industry sectors.
Because just very recently, I believe 1 or 2 months ago, 27 new vocational undergraduate majors have just been added by the Ministry of Education. They are directly mapped to the frontiers of technology and advanced manufacturing, such as humanoid robots engineering and vehicle networking technology. So these two majors are targeting the growing demand for digital jobs, such as robotics engineers and also smart connected vehicle testers. So having the jobs in the mind before any majors is planned is now the case, at least from top to the bottom. And other majors, new majors, would include smart maintenance of energy storage equipment. Apparently that's for EV battery fixers. And then there's hydrogen energy engineering too, in response to the rise of green energy jobs such as energy storage system operators and hydrogen energy engineers. So many of these vocational universities are indeed working closely with companies too. They try to create a more direct path from school to employment. Back to the school that Steve mentioned earlier, Shenzhen Polytechnic University. They have a ratio of 90% of their first graduating class of vocational bachelor students joining major companies such as Huawei and DJI. And then in another school in Beijing, the Beijing Polytechnic University, students literally have a Boeing 737 model type. It's like a real airplane parked in the playground, or like as part of their educational like daily routine. They actually get hands-on experience with fixing these real planes, so that in the future they can work in Air China, for example, as Air China's Beijing aircraft maintenance crew. So this is like again, they have the ideal jobs planned already. And then in turn, they start to come up with majors that can cultivate the talents for these future jobs. I think it's a really clear path designed already for a lot of these young people.
Yeah, so with this kind of, I think, employment certainty is sort of give so enable this shifted mentality among students, parents that we talked before about, the stigma that used to attach to vocational education. They are now seeing that not only you have an assured position and place in a very competitive job market, but also you can be integrated in one of the top tier and the most high tech industries when it comes to the frontier of development. And also when it comes to this kind of major design, I would say on some level vocational universities or vocational secondary schools can be more flexible in a sense compared to a university opening up a new major, because when it sort of feels like they can change the direction, for example, the different companies they decide to cooperate with. And then on that moment, they can start to realizing, okay, these are the skills we need to teach to our students. But compared to with a university major curriculum design, I think it can be more complicated.
So many positives from this boom. But at the same time, I want to go back, actually, and ask about the other students. Now, we already established that traditionally these schools would have been for students who perhaps decided not to pursue the Gaokao or perhaps didn't do so well on the test on that particular day and ended up in this path. So what happens to those students when the bar gets raised? Shenzhen Polytechnic, over 600 on the Gaokao. Their students now are applying for those positions. Other schools, 570, which you said is still considered to be a very good score. So if those students are taking up all of the spaces in traditional vocational schools, what happens to the students who would have taken those spots with their lower scores?
Let me zoom out first by bringing this to a bigger scale, because I mentioned earlier there are only nationwide 124 of such vocational undergraduate universities currently. 124 versus thousands of regular universities. So the scale is still kind of small, if I may say. It's not really that common
scale,
or
yeah.
like it's not really everybody's choice that all the students are trying to get in these universities.
And also, I think it's important to note, these are vocational undergraduate programs.
They're not vocational schools in general. There are still
Right.
all different other types of vocational schools.
And these types of programs have only been around for 6 years or 7 years in total.
Yeah, that's true. But back to your question, Steve, I think it's a real concern among a lot of the students too, because when it comes to vocational university application, it's not really just for students who attend Gaokao, but also for other students too. So the students who take the national Gaokao they cover the majority of the student group. That's about 76% of the total student group who is applying for these schools. And then there is about 14% that's for graduates from secondary vocational schools, and then about 10% for vocational college graduates too. So if larger numbers of high school students, including some of the 学霸, like the top performing students joining the pool right now, of course the whole competition is going to be more fierce for those students who are meant for the not so high expectation in the first place.
I think it's a good thing, actually, to bring in the competition into the vocational educations for students. Because I have a friend who is a teacher, a lecturer in one of the vocational, I'm not sure if it's universities or secondary high schools, but she teaches English in that school. And she told me that it's not having that good of an experience being an English teacher in that school. A couple of years ago, actually, the conversation happened because you don't get a lot of feedback from these students. Because when the students, she's an English teacher, so it's not one of the skill or the main courses for any major in that school. But you can sense that environment, the atmosphere among the students in those schools, that the majority of the students were like, I'm just here for a diploma.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't care about anything. I don't care about future development. Do I have a future development?
Why do I need English?
Yeah, why do I need English? What future do I have? Maybe working in a factory, not so sure. So they're not really thinking they have a future. And that's why they have this kind of pessimistic attitude when it comes to when you want to talk to them about your career development, your potential, your personal development. They don't believe in that.
Yeah, and that's not to criticize the students, I don't think, because as you said, in the past, this wouldn't be choice A for that path wouldn't be choice number one for the parents, and it wouldn't be choice number one for many of the students. Not all, of course, but for many of them, it would be perhaps a disappointment that they would have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
You think increased competition will change the attitudes in the classroom?
Yeah, because with more competitions, first of all, from the school's point of view, they need to start thinking seriously about their curriculum and major designs.
Yeah.
They need to bring in the really good courses, really good teachers, really good materials, and really good programs offered to the students. And then coming back to the students with these kind of environment built for them, they can really start thinking about exploring their own potentials, even though of course maybe you are not doing that well in Gaokao academically, but it doesn't mean it's a dead end. You may be very good with all the hands-on skills that are required for an engineer. Who knows?
And let's not forget that despite intense competition, as we mentioned in today's job market, there's still a long-term shortage of highly skilled workers in so many other fields, such as elder care, health service, and medical devices, and new energy, and etc. So sometimes I almost get the impression that education provided by traditional design, by traditional mentality, is like a wall. Within the wall, the students are like, I don't know what I can do after I graduate. And then outside the wall, the companies are like, oh my goodness, we can't get enough new recruits for this, and that jobs. So if that, for students' point of view, if they realize that there is such a gap existing, and upon applying for a major, they already see that, and maybe just deviate away or take a detour across the most popular majors and try to get closer to the latest like policies or incentives and see if there's any places that haven't been really crowded up or been touched by other students, and see where that can lead you to. I think there's always opportunities for them too.
I would be more, as you know, we're sitting here talking about this, I had this thought. I might be more concerned about the traditional universities in the future. All of this makes such perfect sense to me. I mean, I know there are challenges when you have a boom like this, and we're going to talk about those in a sec. But all of this makes such perfect sense to me because you've got a change in the job market. New jobs are being created. AI is changing everything in front of us right now. And for the new generation of workers, that means everything's changing for them. If you have programs designed that kind of give you a roadmap to your future, then that makes such perfect sense. And it's no question why it's so popular. Now, you said, Yushan, there's only 124 of these schools all around the country. Now, that's a very small number in a country the size of China. That number, I would guess, I don't know, but I would guess that number is going to expand quite quickly.
Yeah, hopefully.
And when that number expands quickly, you're going to have more and more and more and more students applying to those. So my point is, when more and more students are interested and attracted to a path like that, what happens to the traditional universities who don't give 50% hands-on experience over the course of their 4-year curriculum?
You see, I see this as a good chance to lower the pressure for students in facing Gaokao.
That
Because
too.
previously, we see Gaokao here in China. We have a slang that can be translated into thousands of millions of young warriors marching through one narrow little bridge, and that little bridge is Gaokao. But now, maybe there are less warriors, less young warriors marching through their bridge.
Or more bridges.
Well,
Yeah.
more bridges for sure.
And also for the universities, although they also need to be more to be smarter when it comes to what kind of majors and courses and programs they're offering. I remember in the past we used to have university, they all sort of flooding into one major and one program because they sense that can be the future job market wants. And then we ended up with thousands, or if not tens of thousands, such majors and overflux of talents into the labor market.
Yeah, right.
And
But-
also, sorry.
So I think bringing in the competition from the vocational schools, the traditional universities themselves need to think smarter and carefully about what kind of programs is really for me, for this particular universities, what kind of courses. It's not as simple as just following the trend.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to add, because previously I remember we talked about there are new majors added in regular universities, undergraduate majors. And in the meantime, there are some majors being eliminated. The new comes, the old is moved out of the list. So this is a good kind of a positive competition that's stirring up in the entire educational system nationwide, and we in general see that as a good thing.
Yeah.
Also,
Competition.
the companies will companies immediately see these undergraduate vocational degrees as legitimate degrees? Maybe in the long term they do, but I don't know in the short term, would they be? If you're a hiring company and you've got a degree from Tsinghua University and you've got a vocational undergraduate degree with similar skill sets, is a company going to look at those two resumes equally?
Well, if you're comparing with Tsinghua University, I don't know. But if that company co-created this vocational university program,
Yeah.
they may, they know that students so well for the past 4 years.
What about for the schools themselves? With this type of fast expansion, it's kind of hard to keep up a little bit, I would guess. And by keeping up, I mean you have to, when the ball is rolling now, so to speak. And here we are talking about it on Roundtable, and the media is covering this en masse. So that means that you have to make sure that the quality of your programs is excellent, and the people teaching those programs are excellent, because there's going to, I would guess a lot of feedback is coming. A lot of feedback is coming. So therefore, making sure that you have everything, your ducks in a row, as we say in English, making sure that everything is as it should be in the universities is priority number one, I would think.
Yeah, and also right now, a lot of experts are saying that schools with weaker foundations and limited cooperation with industry, because there are schools out there, vocational schools especially, they try to become a university by changing name. But of course, it's not enough. You got to really give the connection to the students with the outside practical job opportunities or intern opportunities. And yeah, like promised, add up with more practical classes. Make sure it's about half of the teaching hours comparing with regular universities. So yeah, there's a lot of changings that need to be done in order to be qualified to be called such a vocational undergraduate university. So yeah,
Fei
higher
Fei,
standard.
If your kids were interested in the future in a vocational undergraduate degree, what would you say?
Depending on the major, if she decided to study English, I would recommend otherwise. But if she decided to, really working on these hands-on fields, industries, I 100% on board. But I was thinking on the principal's office table, there must be a lot of list of companies he or she would be thinking, which one should I approach now? This is not only about a list of lecturers and teachers on his desk anymore.
Yeah, that's more to consider. A lot more to consider.